need to turn all these abandoned schools in Soweto into skill centers, arts and crafts centers, music school centers, and all of that. We can't have all these schools that are left abandoned today in Soweto being hijacked, being used for something else, while our kids are languishing in our homes. So I'm asking and pleading with the department that can we hold our hands together by taking over all these abandoned schools in Soweto. There's almost 60 to 70 schools that are left abandoned, that are being used for something else. Our understanding as a generation, Abosanyova, is that that freedom means life without hunger, life without poverty, life without ignorance and substance abuse. This life is what our comrades fought for. In conclusion, we draw inspiration from the June 1676 selfless generation that fought. Long live the undying spirit of June 16 detachment, long live. Long live the undying spirit of Tsietsi Mashinini, long live. Long live the undying spirit of Comrade Khotso Seatlhaolo, long live. Long live the undying spirit of Ephraim Mukhali, long live. Each one. Thank you, comrades. You know, if it was not a government event, it'd be so cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Mr. Mazamo Martins. Apologies earlier on, I think I said Miss. Sorry for that. Maybe I need reading glasses, eh? Yeah, look into that. All right, thank you so much to Mr. Mazamo Martins. Up next, we will be hearing from the June 16 Foundation, Mr. Dan Montiti.
Mata. Dumelang kaofela, all protocol observed. Hey, it's a long time since Kitoitoya. Kokamoya. Comrades, we wish to convey our regards to the city and to the province for their continuous organization and celebration of June 16. This is not done simply for us to come and share our gratitude, but it is done to honor the current youth, because it is the youth of today who need the support from the city and the support from the province. So the continuous organization and the continuous recognition and maintenance of the legacy of 1976 is something that we welcome as the June 16, 1976 Foundation, the generation of 1976, and the class of 1976. Let me just hasten to say that the demonstrations themselves, they were properly organized. If you take the period of 1974, when Mozambique became free, that is what inspired us. We listened to Radio Freedom. We got some of the documents and leaflets, and most of which were banned, whether from the PAC or the ANC, but we were able to read, we were able to organize ourselves. But at a later stage, SASM decided to have a program. That program was a national program. But the unfortunate thing is that at that stage, given the conditions, as we were a national organization, it were only few, because the Free State did not have a branch. It's only Cape Town, the Eastern Cape, and Gauteng that had branches of SASM. So those few very student activists were the ones who organized meetings in churches, meetings in the schools, to say that the Portuguese who fled Mozambique must not be supported by South Africans, because the Nationalist Party government that time was saying those Portuguese should be supported, while we were saying those Portuguese should not be supported because they were oppressors. The freedom of Mozambique gave us the impetus to continue with the struggle. Now come 76, fast forward. In 1975, we are attending a meeting of SASM. After the meeting of SASM, we are sitting at the stairs at the OCC. This was sometime in November 1975. We checked the Sunday Times. Lo and behold, Melder, the then Minister of Education, says Afrikaans is going to be introduced as a medium of instruction. We didn't take it seriously. We dismissed it because there was no way in which Afrikaans can encroach its tentacles into Soweto. But come January 1976, it's true, a rector called Cedric de Pierre was responsible for all the schools in Soweto, began to move from one school to the other, informing the principals that Afrikaans is indeed going to be introduced as a medium of instruction. Now, the school board tried to talk to the district inspector, and the principals in Soweto tried to talk to the district inspector. It's unfortunate the district inspector was saying it's policy from national government, there's nothing they could do. Now it was incumbent upon students to take it up. So we did take it up. And we organized a meeting. Firstly, it was in March in 1976 at Velgespreid, where we looked at the sporadic incidences which were taking place because students had begun the process of protesting on this issue of Afrikaans as a medium. The next meeting was in May. The last meeting was on the 13th of June in 1976 in the OCC. That is where we took the decision, firstly to march, secondly to march peacefully, and thirdly to ensure that there are placards which have to indicate what the demonstration was all about. And we started to move on and on, away with Bantu education, away with apartheid, release Mandela, and so on. So the release for Nelson Mandela at that time came from the class of 1976. When we started moving and marching, we were excited, we were happy because we have achieved what we had planned. Most of the high school, Skanantwane High School, all the West, we were taking all the secondary schools, and then we marched along with them. So it was not the effort of one school, it was the effort of the combined schools of Soweto in the West to move. Students like in Madiwane High School, those were expected to march at a later stage on the 17th of June. Well, they shot and did all that and all that and all that and all that. But fortunately, we were able to overcome because Afrikaans was actually rescinded by the Nationalist Party government on the 16th of July, 1976. They considered that they had made a mistake and they wanted us to go back to class. They've removed Afrikaans. In July, just a month after, the struggle continued until we were able to attain our democracy. Now that we have our democracy, now that we are in government, we have to transform education. When you look at, you'll be looking at the two strands that we have absorbed as the new government. You look at how the Nationalist Party government began very early to establish their own language. And at a later stage, they began to establish their own educational institutions. Your Rau University, your Stellenbosch University, your Pretoria University, those were universities in the medium of Afrikaans. And they were champions of the culture of the Afrikaners, Afrikaner economy, Afrikaner religion, culture, and their heritage, Afrikaner. On the other hand, you had the British. Because they had agreed now that they are not going to fight, both the British and the Afrikaners in 1910. That is why the African National Congress was formed, because these two strands were saying their enemy was the Swartafari. The British, on the other hand, they established their own institutions. You have Wits, you have UCT, you have Rhodes University, and so on and so on. Now, you had two cultures in South Africa. One, what was British, and the other one, which was Afrikaners. 1994, when we take over higher education with the two strands. Culture. And two, this Afrikaner culture. This must fall students say, we want a decolonized education. It's true. Education has to be decolonized. But the most important thing is for us to be able to know that where do we want to take South Africa? What cultural heritage do we want as a nation? What are the pillars that we are going to put into place in order to build a future South Africa? Social cohesion, the economy of South Africa, which is the key pillar that is going to drive the development of our economy. Education has to answer all those. So what we are saying is the fees must fall, students are on the right direction. Education must be transformed, not only at tertiary, but also at basic. The last point, as we were involved in the struggle even in the 80s, we had some amongst us, comrades who were saying, after the liberation, I did not struggle to be poor. You see? It's unfortunate that they are saying this after the liberation. If they said it during that time, the rationale that time and the main objective that time was to liberate the people of South Africa, was to ensure that the people of South Africa will have a better life. That was the objective of our freedom. Now, if a few are going to expropriate the resources of the state, that should not be allowed. It shouldn't be allowed. The freedom that we have fought for the freedom that we have died for. We cannot hand it over to individuals on a silver platter to plunder the resources of government. So we have to be able to say, away with corruption. We have to be able to say that. Now, having said that, if they decided to enrich themselves, if they had said it earlier while we were still in the struggle, we would have treated them as an enemy. They wouldn't have survived to see the future South Africa, because they were working against us who wanted liberation for our country. We have to say, away with corruption. I thank you.
A very big thank you, yes, to Mr. Dan Muntiti from the June 16 Foundation. Some very powerful words were shared there, and definitely some words that we need to and probably will reflect on this day. Okay, let's move on to our next speaker. Next, we will be hearing from the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, and from the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, we'll be hearing from Lukhanyo Neer. Please welcome him to the stage.
Thank you, Program Director. I imagine all protocols have already been observed on my behalf, so I will lean on the foundations laid for me already. It is indeed an honor and a privilege for us to join you today and deliver a message of support on behalf of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation at this august occasion. Much like last year, this year's Youth Day event takes place in the middle of a health and economic crisis, which continues to affect many people across the world. In South Africa, Youth Day is of special significance to us, as this day commemorates the day when the youth stepped up to assume their role as leaders in their society, to effect the changes they saw they needed in their country. It is as if the youth of 1976 intimately understood what Mam Charlotte Maxeke meant when she said, and I quote, "The work is not for ourselves. Kill the spirit of self and do not live above your people, but live with them, and if you can rise, bring someone with you." So as we look at our country today, we can clearly see that there are many challenges the youth continues to face. Unemployment, underemployment, corporate and state corruption, poor access to quality education and healthcare, amongst many other things. The impact of the youth of 1976 that led to the historic moment which broke the yoke of centuries of colonialism and decades of apartheid, we must also, as a current and future leaders, reflect on what we have done with the firm foundations led by previous generations, in particular the 1976 generation. In a poem titled "Ukuthula kwakho kuvuma," Mam Nontsizi Mgqwetho, a poet, imbongi, and a political commentator, writes, "Asinakuthula umhlaba ubolile," which when translated means we cannot sit still. Those words by Umam Nontsizi Mgqwetho are a great reminder to the youth of today that it needs to urgently and vigorously engage with the many challenges faced by South Africa and the continent at large. We mention the continent at large because in today's world, the problems we face are continental and global in nature and require us to stand in solidarity with the youths of the continent in their various struggles. We cannot be silent on what's happening in Mozambique. We cannot be silent about what's happening in Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Tigray, and other parts of the continent. Program Director, as I close, as a foundation, we are dedicated to Africa's renewal, as evidenced by the various programs we are engaged in, from the digital education program we are rolling out in initially 50 schools in the Eastern Cape and in Mpumalanga, to the Taumegi Presidential Library, which seeks to educate, inculcate, inspire, and activate citizens from all walks of life to be dynamic agents of Africa's renaissance. And as such, we continue to wish to explore youth from across the country and across the continent so that we may take the legacy of Mayor Charlotte Maxeke and the youth of 1976 to greater heights. I thank you, and please continue to take care in this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Once again, a very big thank you to Each One Teach One, to the June 16 Foundation, to the Thabo Mbeki Foundation as well. Thank you so much for all that you continue to do for the youth of South Africa. Now, as we look back on this historic day, as we look back at what transpired on this day in 1976, for some of us, it is something that is difficult to even imagine, let alone live through. But what we do know is that there are South Africans who lived through the very harsh moments of our country. Just as social change was happening, there were certain South Africans who were part of that moment. Next on our program, we will be taking a listen to the stories of some survivors and some witnesses of the Soweto uprisings in 1976. We will be hearing from a former teacher who was a student here at Morris Isaacson School, who was also a teacher here at this school, and who was able to witness everything that went on during that era. We will be hearing his story in a moment. His name is Phineas Kutumela. In a few moments, we will also be hearing from a survivor of the Soweto uprisings. This person was shot at the age of 9 years old. And since that day, their life was taken away. 9 years old. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage former teacher Phineas Kutumela, as well as a survivor, Linda Magagula.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm going to take it, protocol is observed. My name is Phineas Kutumela. Today is my birthday, so if I make mistakes, do pardon me. I think I have a license to make mistakes today. First of all, my speech is going to be divided into 3 parts. I'm going to talk briefly about the period before we became teachers, and then the time when we started teaching, and the day itself, and then briefly about where most of the teachers are today who were there in 1976. Right? Briefly, I can say I started school at Skanondwane in 1962. We were the first students of Skanondwane Secondary School. I think our president came a year or 2 thereafter with a lot of other people who became politicians. I won't mention names. And then I spent 3 years there, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. Unlike most of my friends who were lucky, I couldn't go to boarding schools. Those days it was very important to go to boarding schools like your Inkamana, Love Day, there was Botshabelo as well, I think. Middleburg, I forget the name, yeah. We all aspire to get to such places. I spent 2 weeks loitering in the streets of Soweto, waiting for applications. Then I came to Morris Isaacson. This is my alma mater, by the way. I'm happy to be here. I did Form 5. I was in the top class. Top class, I mean those who did your maths, science, English A, Afrikaans B. Actually, I wanted to do Afrikaans A. Then Mr. Dlamini said, no. We don't do Afrikaans A here. So we did Afrikaans B and all the other subjects. So we did joint matriculation board. There was one class for senior matric. It was called senior then, right? Unfortunately, I failed at the end of the second year. I had to repeat. But this was JMB, ladies and gentlemen. Some of our sisters who were studying joint matriculation board, this mlens wouldn't stick, they would just run like this because they were studying very hard. And after passing matric here, I worked for the city council. We used to sell liquor now. That was a paying job. At each station, I was based at Shawelo. Then Tengisa beer, Tetemela Ngoof. That was the beer we sold at the beer garden. And then went to the University of Zululand in the 70s. This is where now we started being exposed to a lot of politics. Because the University of Zululand did not join SASO, the Black Consciousness Movement, quickly because of the political setup out there. So we used to have a lot of visitors from Wentworth, the medical school in Durban, who used to come almost every week to come in so that then we qualified, and then I started teaching at Molapo Secondary School. It's just down the road in Molapo Township. So those days we didn't struggle for jobs, you almost got a job in your own township. So I would wake up at 7:30, go to school, be at school at 8 o'clock, walk. If I don't have money, I would have lunch at home. Right, I told you that June the 16th is my birthday. So like a young man, I was invited for lunch. On this day, the students were going to write my paper. So after assembly, but we were surprised, the students did not want to write. We went to assembly, sang, prayed, went to the classrooms, but they wouldn't write. Before long, students from Naledi High came to take our students with them to this school because they were going to come together here and then march to the stadium. So fortunately, our principal was a former Fort Hare student. He knew what a march was, what it was all about. With us, we knew what a march was because we were recently qualified from the University of Zululand. So our students left, but the young ones, the Form 1s, we asked them to go home. And then these Form 2 and Form 3, we told them you can join. Then they joined. I invited a few of my friends to go with me for my lunch. It's almost lunch now, I think. So at about this time, we had our lunch. We saw my partner cook nice lunch. We enjoyed the lunch. When we went back to school, we met parents coming from work already. They were telling us, those days the parents knew us, the members of the community. They were saying, you guys are here. Can you see the smoke? Now from that day, June 16, or South Africa was never the same again. right? We never had school from the 16th of June until February the following year. So the following year, we just collected the students to write the paper that they were supposed to write to write the exam so that we could take them to the next level. I think we are seeing the same thing now in COVID-19. Right? We came back, ran that exam, but before I go there, I can tell you, how did the teachers cope with the Afrikaans teaching? Fortunately, Ntate Dan has just given a full background of what was happening then. So I was a teacher for mathematics, I was a teacher for Sesotho and biblical studies. I'm going to demonstrate, when you talked of a triangle, in English they call it an isosceles triangle. So I used to use my legs to demonstrate. I hope they are still equal. So we used to call that a gelyk benige driehoek. That was your isosceles triangle. I have a brother who was at another school. He did zoology and biology in Afrikaans. He spoke of a soogdier. That was your mammal. And then kakebeen. Kakebeen, I think it's your jaws, something like that. So if you were a teacher and you had not prepared, it was going to be very difficult to go to class, because especially the content subjects, half had to be taught in English and then half in Afrikaans. And you had no choice. You couldn't say, no, I didn't study at an Afrikaans university. For your job's sake, you had to prepare, take a big dictionary, and offer classes. So the brief history you've already got from Tate Dan, I won't go into that. What happened is, after June 16 and the following year, now the trouble started. The police would come and collect the students, all of them, and then on Friday, before you go home, you go via the police station in Protea. And then your principal would get a few claps, and then they would release the students. On the day we were burying Hector Peterson, was being buried, it was at Regina Mundi. The service was held at Regina Mundi. I remember what one of our leaders said about the rulers there. I quote, "Those whom the gods want to destroy, they first make them mad." So, unquote, close quote. So the last part of my speech is this. Today, where are those teachers? What happened to them? Most of us scattered the country. I remember my mother-in-law gave me some money. I jumped into a train, got a job in Palachi. I got a post there. But then quickly I heard that one of our leaders in education was looking for me. I came back very quick. And then we as teachers we were blacklisted. We couldn't get jobs in the industry. And then I came back, and then there would be a mini auction. People who know you and say, "Hey, I know Kutumela is good in this, then I want him at my school." Those teachers who did not resign, and then they say, "I know Mkhize is good in this," and then so I got a job at Naledi High. I remember my first day at Naledi High, there was no roof. It was just charcoal, because the school was not yet repaired. So I'm going to cut my story there briefly, but some of the teachers did not come back to education. They were lost for good to education. I remember the very principal of this school worked at Premier Milling for a while. I can't mention names, but most of them are still alive. Most of them are quite sickly now. They are at home recuperating. I thank you.
Thank you so much to Phineas Kutumela for sharing his story with us today. It really is amazing and astonishing to hear what it was like back then, what it was like in 1976, and what some of our brothers and sisters, our mothers, our fathers, aunts and uncles, our grandmothers and grandfathers had to endure during that time. Ladies and gentlemen, up next, we will be taking a listen to Linda, who is someone who lived through that era as well. Someone who has endured a lot of pain, a lot of sacrifice, and someone who was a part of the youth of 1976. Please give her a warm round of applause.
Ngiyanibingelela nonke egameni lenkosi yethu uJesu Kristo, amen. Omelana uZandile wakaMagagula, on behalf of Ulinda Magagula ehleli laphayana, ngiyathemba nimbonile nonke mengena uyastrugglisha ukuhamba kakhona ukuhamba kahle. Okushothi ke mangime lapha Ulinda Magagula wadutshula ngo1976 efunda uStandard 1 njengoba seku grade 3 kulezikhathi zamanje ena 9 years. Okusothi kusukela ngalelo langa lelo adutshuliwe Ulinda esikoleni ayifunda kuso entandweni lowa primary school. Impilo yakhe yatshintsha lapho. Kwakumntana obekade ekahle futhi ekhaliphile. Kwatshintsha lapho ke nespeech nokuhamba. Konke lokukhula nje akumnandanga nakuya kukho mnandi ukumbone nje nangesinye isikhathi ukuthi ukubuya kwazi ukuzenzela ngabe wenza 1 2 3. Kepha ngoNkulunkulu emuhle siyambonga ngoba usazama ukuthi azihambele. Noba ngokuya ngokukhula manje usayastrugglisha ukuhamba nespeech sakhe mawungamuzwa mawungamjwayelanga angeke uzumuzwe ukuthi uthini. Shothi ke since lapho ke for 45 years ubhuti wami aphila lempilo akayiphilayo. Kepha ngibonga uNkulunkulu ngoba yena kwaba inhlanhla enkulu kuba ngikwazi ukuthi ngimlande lapho ayidutshulele khona ngoba siyazi abani ukuthi ngalezo sikhathi mawudutshuliwe ungasakhona ukuhamba ubaleke wawungeke usatholakala baningi abangabazi ihlobo zabo namhlanje ukuthi bakuphi. Kepha mina ngibonga uNkulunkulu ngoba ubhuti wami ngisasenaye noba kunzima kuye, kepha konke lokho ngiyakubonga kuNkulunkulu. Ngijabule namhlanje ukuthi naye akwazi ukuphuma ejardini azohlanganyela nabantu abaningi ngoba inkinga yakhe akasafuni kuba la kune crowd khona. Kepha ngiyakubonga konke lokho ngathi ungaba khona okungenzeka impilo yakhe ngoba konke nje usefana like nomntana omncane. Ngicela konke lokho ngiyabonga kakhulu.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you coming up here and sharing Linda's story. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we've all been looking forward to this part of the proceedings. Now, as we reflect on today and as we reflect on, once again, the things that transpired on this day in 1976, we think about music and its relationship with our history. We also do think about the arts and its relationship with our history. Now, every once in a while, our country is blessed with an icon. Our country is blessed with someone whose poise, whose talent, and whose love for entertainment blows us all away. One such person is Mayor Abigail Kubeka. Mayor Abigail has performed alongside other legends like Miriam Makeba and Hugh Masekela. In 2014, Mayor Kubeka received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the SAFTAs, the South African Film and Television Awards. and also received another Lifetime Achievement Award at the Wawela Music Awards in Johannesburg. Today, we are so pleased and so honored to be graced by her presence. Please help me welcome to the stage Abigail Kubeka.
A very good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. A great pleasure. Though it's sad, sour, sweet, but we're here to commemorate this great day, the saddest day of our nation in 1976. All protocol observed. Linda, siyabonga baba, siyajabula ukuba nawe. uNkulunkulu akubusise. Thank you very much. Before, okay. You know, in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, music played a pivotal role in the struggle. Music played a pivotal role in the struggle in the 76, in the 70s and 60s. When politicians were underground, I note Otatu Mandela and all our former leaders were underground. And those that were not underground, they began house arrest. So who was the people? Who were the people who talked? Oh, musicians. It was the music. We wrote songs. We spoke to people through our music. We comforted them. We educated them. That was music. I know abantu abaningi think music siyadlala nje. We're just wasting time, playful, uneducated people. It's not that. It's deeper than that, my brothers and sisters. It's from the heart. And for me, it doesn't make me a hero. Instead, it makes me a servant. Like Hugh said, Hugh ended up by saying, Tumamina. Because he felt to we struggle and all the hardships. And I'm still around to spread the word, to talk to the people. Abantu abayifika kangaka lapha niyazi ukuthi sisenkingeni ye-COVID, but abantu kufanele sikhulume nabo abekho lapha abantwana, because we have to tell them ukuthi wiwaphi manje. Ladies and gentlemen, we have lost our children, and our children have lost us. Akusena communication. We have to speak to these children. Ukuthi bantwana bami kuliwe sayithola inkululeko. Senzani ngayo manje? What are we doing with this freedom? Ngibona iphuma ngefastela ihamba le freedom le. Without benefiting the people who fought and died for it. Ngibona kungena abanye abantu take over kule nkululeko. Because abantwana bethu balahlekile. Abazi ukuthi kufanele benzeni manje. We are not communicating with them. We are not talking to them. We are doing things thina ngokwethu. Esifuna thina esibhekane nathi. We are not the people. Abantwana bethu are. Otherwise the country izosilahlekela bakithi. Futhi mina ngibona seyilahlekile. It breaks my heart. It kills me. Kodwa ngilahla ithemba. The government must come down to the people. Talk to the people. Talk to the people, government. Don't just rule the people. Talk to them. Find out ukuthi kwenzakalani ebantwini ekuhluphekeni with frustration. People are frustrated. People are frustrated because no one is talking to them. Everybody was into yakhe emjabulisayo phela. I can go on forever. In fact, go moshela ilanga lokho. Konke. Askule. Thank you. Likhona lecule lithi khawuleza. Ela recorder uHuma Sikela, recorded by Dorothy Masuku. Dorothy wrote this song elithi khawuleza. Ngoba during that era, omama bethu uma bengenzi washing ebalungini bebethengisa utshwala. Begaya ugoloko. So bebefihla khona lapho emajaritini. Wafihle utshwala. Abantwana they always